What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined as always by my main man, Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what is going on, brother?
And it is Friday, TGIF.
That's it.
And one more week down.
That's
We
it.
just
We're
gotta get
yep. So much
gotta
close.
get.
We are less than a calendar week away from the veterans reporting to camp.
We're less than a calendar week away from actual observations from training camp.
Right. We
First day of training camp, all that kind of
I
good
was about to
stuff.
say by the time y'all are seeing this, we will be 1 week away from us being at training camp.
Mm-hmm.
Unless something changes, we will be at training camp. What is that, the 27th,
29th.
29th? So, unless something changes, we will be at camp the 29th.
Yep.
And which will be a week from Saturday, which, like I said, which is when y'all should be seeing this particular video. So, with that being said, we have come together to like kind of talk about some of the upcoming camp battles that we are looking forward to, thinking that should be some of the more intriguing storylines that should be coming up
Yep.
in training camp. So we're just going to kind of like go back and forth. I'll say the one of the ones that's intriguing me, then we'll bounce to you, and then we'll just go back and forth until we feel like we've covered everything.
All right.
So right off the rip, when I got to thinking about this time of year, training camp coming, what are the battles that I'm most excited about, most interested in looking forward to? And I thought, like initially, I was like, well, there's not really a ton of them, but there's not a ton of them that really jump out initially until you start thinking about it. Uh, like I thought to myself, well, you got Bijan and you got Tyler. Those guys
Mm-hmm.
are pretty much cemented. You're not going into training camp with a real like QB battle. Like
No.
Desmond Ritter's your guy, right? Like most of the offensive line is set, most of your defensive line is set. So where are the battles? And one of the ones that came to mind right off the rip was the left guard battle. Yep. So it is like going into training camp, Matt Hennessy up to this point has taken all the reps at starting left guard. Now, we have like previous examples with Richie Grant and to an extent Arnold Ebiketie. Uh, this regime does not seem to be like super want to push a second round or second round pick player or a rookie for that matter into the fire. They had to do that some the first year. They got burnt big time with Jalen Mayfield, and since then it's been like let's kind of hold back in a sense.
Yeah.
So if Bergeron does not start, I don't take that as a bad sign.
Right.
But that's where my eyes is going in the first battle, like the first set of battles, and I think it's going to be a pretty good one. What's your observations there?
I mean, I hope it's a good one because if it is a good one, and it's not just a runaway, this guy just ran away with it, then that means we have two good guys, likely. We have two guys that really competed, that really played well, that it was neck and neck throughout training camp, and it was a really tough decision for the coaching staff to go with. All right, if we have that, then that means that we're getting a good guy no matter which way they go.
Right.
Right. My hope would be for Bergeron, but if it's neck and neck, I could maybe see going with Hennessy as he is the vet, being a little bit more. He's played in the league more. He kind of understands like what it. He really understands more so what it takes to be successful in the NFL. Some people might say, well, he hasn't been exactly successful himself, but he understands, a little bit more so what's coming against him,
Yeah.
right? He's not. It's not going to surprise him in any way.
And also like he's been in the scheme now for 2 years. So like
Yep.
theoretically, he should have a better understanding of what he's being asked to do. Also, keep in mind, like Bergeron is switching positions. He
Yes.
is going from left tackle to left guard. So
Yes.
that transition may not be like
Yeah.
super smooth right off the rip.
And
Um,
it just might take him a little while to like settle in and like really become comfortable to the point where he's not thinking about, okay, I'm at left guard. I've got to do these things to be a left guard. And, once you can get past that, you're no longer thinking and you're just reacting.
right,
It just becomes muscle memory. It just becomes a thing that you just do until you get to that point, like really get to that point. Then, it's going to be a question mark. And like you said, you don't want to pull a Mayfield on him
nope,
and put
and
him out
burn his
there
confidence
against.
and
I mean, week one, Carolina Panthers. Say what you want about anything else. Like they've got some weapons on offense, yes, but the thing that scares me most about the Panthers is that D line. That D line, it seems like no matter who they put out there is a rugged defensive line.
right, exactly.
So,
And so I don't necessarily like the idea of throwing a rookie out there just for oh well, trial by fire,
yep,
because maybe it is like PTSD from Mayfield, but that's not something I want to see done again. So there's part of me that's like, if Hennessy starts the season, I'm not going to be upset because he ended the season last year playing, pretty well at left guard, instead of in the place of Wilkerson.
yeah.
Um, so
like they pretty much whoever we put over there at left guard, we were still mashing folks. So
right,
like whether it was Wilkerson, whether it was Hennessy, whether it was
Chuma, Doggo, or whatever.
Chuma Edoga. There's another guy I can't remember his name to save my life right now, but we had some different guys there, and yeah, some guys may have been a little better in certain areas than other guys or what have you, but for the most part, like especially in the run game, like things kind of just kept going.
Yep. I mean, it was far and away better going to the right, but there were
Yes.
times, especially I think it was the which I think it was the Arizona game. That left side of the line was opening up massive holes. So,
Yeah.
like I said, that battle is one of the first ones I'm looking at,
Yep.
but I'm not going to be upset one way or the other, whichever way it goes, because I
Yep.
think with the other five positions pretty much being locked in, um, then that gives me a little bit more ease of comfort, with that left guard position, especially if Dahlman, the center, can continue to make the rise that he was making there towards the end of the year.
Yep.
So,
I feel really good about him. Just I don't want to get off on that tangent, but I've got a good feeling. I mean, it could blow up in my face, but I just have a really good feeling about him.
yeah, he really started, like, I was worried initially, early part of last year, because like he had a bunch of errant snaps, and I was like, dude, that's your one job, really. That's your first job, is to deliver a good ball to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the quarterback is having to not get the ball in rhythm to begin with, that's messing up the timing of the play right off the rip, and then that's no good. So I was glad to see him settle that stuff down, and start to be able to make a better, like, solidify that position better.
Yep.
And they must feel good about it because they didn't really bring anybody in to challenge him. I know they
No.
drafted the kid Gwynn out of South Carolina, but I think initially he's going to be probably your backup center to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that will move us into the next battle. Uh, if you want to tee us up, because it's everybody's favorite band. Dun, dun.
Nickelback.
Look at this photograph. Oh, sorry.
You're gonna get us DMCA, man.
I know. You can sample it very, very, very. Anyway.
But no, yeah, Nickelback is probably the next on the list for me as far as camp out. Now, the difference. Some people might say, wide receiver two, or they might say linebacker. I think those are some areas that we. And while the more I think about it, and as we've gotten closer to the season, I think less and less of the wide receiver two being an issue thing. Not
Right.
even necessarily from a, let's not think of it as wide receiver one and wide receiver two. We're thinking of it as target one, two, three, four, whatever. Even apart from that, like the more I think about it, I think Mac Hollins is going to be good. I think we're at least going to get what he gave last year,
Right.
maybe a little bit more. So I'm positive on that. And then Scotty Miller, like I like that. I like that signing. And so I haven't really thought about that too much more. Linebacker, that is the kind of the one place that I feel like we just kind of didn't do much of anything really.
Yeah, they
Um,
like
other than other than not sign guys.
other than Caden Ellis, right? You're putting
Yeah,
my worry is that you're putting a lot of like it seems like you're hanging that bridle or you're hanging the harness on like Troy Anderson stepping up and Caden Ellis being able to continue doing what he did for you in New Orleans.
yeah,
Um, but what bothers me in that aspect is like that, in New Orleans, Caden Ellis was a lot at the line of scrimmage. And so I don't know. I mean, we have kind of like, you know, uh, discarded Michael Walker because he had a rough year last year. But maybe there's something there that they see
yeah,
and asking him to do maybe play more off the ball some, that gives them like uh gives them some confidence that we're
yeah.
just not seeing. But right
Very
now,
possible.
you're in a 4-2-5. Most of us have Caden Ellis and Troy Anderson slotted as your two inside linebackers. And like outside of that, man, we ain't got much else. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't necessarily constitute that as a camp battle because I think you don't have enough there for somebody to kind of be on the bubble. I don't
Yeah,
think.
right. Exactly. I don't think
Uh,
anybody's going to pry anything away from those guys.
right. So Nickelback, just the cornerback room in general, there's a lot there, right? There's a lot of people there. Whether you're talking about cornerbacks, obviously, one and two, we believe. Obviously, Trufant number one. We
Trevon.
believe. Man, I am going back in time. Uh, Terrell. Man, I don't
y'all,
know why
y'all, y'all,
that name just popped into my mind.
y'all don't heard him in the comments, yo.
Wow. All right.
Terrell.
Terrell.
There you go.
Terrell's one. Two, we believe is going to be Okuda.
I would
Right.
imagine, like, it seems like, and it's not just us. It's not just the like YouTube talking head community, Twitter analyst community that is uh throwing that out there. I mean, you're having the Atlanta Falcons social media team like throwing pictures of them two standing together talking about no fly zone, so it's
Yeah.
definitely feels like it's being billed that that's exactly what they want to transpire.
Right. So if we take those two positions as locked up, the thing you don't have locked up right now is who is your nickelback?
Right.
Who's your third corner? Is that going to be a Mike Hughes? Is that going to be a Alford? Although throughout much of the OTAs, especially the non-mandatory part of it, Mike Hughes didn't show completely, voluntary, right?
Right.
So he didn't have to show up, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not trying to say I'm not going to be one of those guys like, well, it would. I guess it wasn't mandatory, but he still should have been there. Whatever. But
Right.
look, if the man had plans, whatever, or he just needed the time off for whatever reason, then I'm sure that he communicated with the coaches like this is what I'm doing, and I'm sure they're okay with it.
I was
Okay.
about to say there was no comments by the coaches that led you to think otherwise when
Right.
it come to Mike Hughes and his attendance.
So but throughout a lot of the OTAs, and I know at the Benz, like Alfred was the guy. Like
Yeah.
he got the majority of the reps at third at the nickelback position.
And, like,
So,
also keep in mind, like, Ryan Nielsen, that was one of the guys unprompted that he brought up.
yep,
I I don't I don't read a lot into when they talk about players when directly asked,
yeah,
but when names are brought up in unprompted ways, that means that guy's on that coach's mind.
yep.
And
That
so
when they're just asked like who's standing out to you and names pop out,
yep,
that's what you pay attention to. So now,
right.
how was so and so doing? Oh,
Uh-huh.
he's doing pretty good. This
No, he's doing
we're
everything we
coming
asked him to do, and
we're coming along and
yeah, he's
all
the
this other
best
stuff.
he's ever looked, and, all those, like, cliched
Yep,
things. It's when, like you said, when it's unprompted, who's standing out to you, and this is, "Oh, I don't really like to do that, but this guy," and that's like, there was basically only one name that Nielsen said, and that was D. Alford.
yeah,
So, um, I think that's very encouraging, and we also, like, in this camp battle wise, don't wanna forget about, Clark Phillips.
yeah.
He was a very intriguing, highly thought of, corner coming out of college. The only knock anybody had on him was his size. He's a little bit
It
shorter.
basically Brent Grimes.
Right. And so, um, but that don't mean that he can't come in and, you know, absolutely blow the doors off of everybody, so
Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting to see how that nickelback is shakes out and how it's distributed. Like, keep in mind, folks, we still don't necessarily have a bead on what this scheme is going to look like defensively.
right, right.
So, we don't know if it's something I bring up before, A, because of how much it was used in New Orleans, and B, Fontenot like brought it up, from the podium, but we don't know how much big nickel they're going to use. And
Yep.
that nickelback may be a safety type person
Yeah.
that is brought out
Trey,
there.
like Trey Flowers,
Right. Uh,
Dawkins,
Dawkins, Hawkins,
or Hawkins. I'm
and then,
Dawkins.
Helms, the
Helms, yeah,
the kid out of Alabama, which I guess kind of like really goes into our next battle. Like, there's a lot of battles going on in the secondary in general, and I think that has a lot to do with the last few years. You've had some injury concerns that have popped up, and when they did pop up, that seemed to really derail your defense. Now, that could be because Dean Pease in his reliance in affecting quarterback through coverages.
yeah,
Now, Nielsen may take a different approach, and you say, "Well, JR, what do you mean by different approach?" Okay, think about Ron Rivera and the Commanders. Like, Rivera builds his defense from the front back. Like, he always wanted to make sure he had a defensive line
yep.
and guys to affect the quarterback that way.
Which
And
is personally how if I'm building from scratch a team, that's how I'm going to build, and
right,
that goes for offense, defense. I'm
yeah,
building
up the
line out.
but think about like uh, the past like decade Patriots, and where they built, like, it was their secondary
Yeah,
that they really made sure was stout, and that's where like Pease came from in a sense.
yeah.
So like especially in his time in Baltimore. Anyway, we're not getting into
And,
that, but
and when you have if you can build a really stout secondary that can hold up the full 3 seconds like really well, and then maybe even give you another second or two of good coverage past that, then that's going to increase your chances for just about any defensive line, no matter who you're putting up there, to get to the quarterback outside of certain situations.
it
But
it
it
all
makes life easier on both sides, and so forth. So
it all works in concert, right?
yes,
If you have a strong secondary, gives your defensive line a little bit more time because they can hold up. If you have a strong defensive line, your secondary doesn't have to hold up as much because the quarterback has, people breathing down his neck, and he has to make, quicker decisions.
yep,
All these things work in concert. So, but this brings up the point of like the third safety is still floating out there. We feel obviously Jesse Bates is your starting free safety. Like
Yes.
that's your prize of free agency.
You don't pay that
Then
man that money if he's not.
right. Exactly. You bring in Jesse Bates because you want Jesse Bates to do Jesse Bates things and be
Yes.
your eraser in the backfield. Be your center fielder back there.
Yep.
So with Jesse Bates being your center fielder, that's going to bring presumably Richie Grant up closer to the line where he seemed to like I was rewatching because glutton for punishment, jonesing for football. I was rewatching the
At least this time it wasn't DVR CFL games.
you back up off my DVR CFL games. Anyway, I think the Tiger Cats or the Hamilton Tiger Cats are playing tonight. So I mean, don't anyway. So um but I was rewatching the Browns game just because that was such a master class in running the ball. That, but I was watching. I counted at least 3 or 4 times that Richie Grant solo tackled Nick Chubb,
Yeah.
and that's impressive to me. Like especially this time of year when you see Nick Chubb squatting, the world on his shoulders. Like to have Richie Grant, you know, solo tackle him in the open field uh, just shows the power that Grant plays with in a sense, and the technique that he has to get a much bigger guy down like that. So you feel like your starting safeties are set in
Yes.
you know Jesse Bates and Richie Grant. But as I alluded to earlier, if they do decide to go dime packages or big nickel rather, like who's that nickel safety that comes in? Is it a Jalen Hawkins? Is it is it DeMarco Helms?
I think it's DeMarco Hellams. Yeah.
Yeah, is it DeMarco Helms? Is it him who comes in? Is it
Yep.
Trey Flowers who,
Yep.
comes off the bench for us? Um the secondary is the one that seems like it's in the most like has the most like different ways it could go.
Well, I would look at it like this. I look at outside of your starting safeties and your starting cornerbacks, right? Outside of those four guys, you know, uh, and I say that like there's a whole lot of other guys out there, but those four positions are going to be there. You know, sometimes you're single high, sometimes you're too high safety, you're in a shell, you're in a whatever. But then, whether you're bringing in a third safety as your nickel, whether you're bringing in a nickelback, Alford is, one type of cornerback. He's got a different body type than, say, Mike Hughes. Trey Flowers is different from Helms, different from
Hawkins.
Hawkins. So I think a lot of it probably it has two things. It gives you the flexibility to be able to say what are like based on who we're playing and what we know our guys are capable of, what are some good matchups we could use there. Right. So one game you may see Hawkins playing a bunch because for whatever reason he matches up really well with whoever he tends to cover whenever he's out on the field,
Right.
right? Or you might see Helms, or you might see Flowers, or you might see Clark,
Clark
Clark
Phillips up.
Phillips.
Yep.
You might see Alford, you might see Hughes, whoever. Just depends on like what they're looking at from a matchup perspective. It gives them that flexibility, but also even if they say, okay, Alford out of camp, he's our number 3 guy, he's our nickelback that's going to come in whenever we go to 3 corners. All right. And maybe they say Trey Flowers is our third safety that when we go big nickel, then that's the guy that comes in. Or maybe
Right.
they say Helms, whoever, whatever. Maybe they name those guys. These are the guys. Then with what we currently have on the roster, if something similar happens as it did last year, where we start, and you're going to have injuries, where guys start, missing a game
Getting
here,
dinged up. Yeah.
what getting dinged up or whatever, then the guys that are coming in presumably are not the camp body,
It's not.
undrafted free agent
It was
guys.
what TJ Green
Yeah,
or Cornelius Armstrong.
yeah,
Those level guys. Like hopefully that's something we had talked about a few videos back, maybe a month or so ago now. raising the floor.
Yep.
And that's part of that raising the floor, that if an Akuda goes down, you could put a um, Mike Hughes on the outside,
Or
and
Clark
then
Phillips.
or Clark Phillips, and then have, like, if you do have to, like, say Mike Hughes wins the nickel, because that's what they talked about him being when they signed him or traded for him or whatever they did. Um, and like, so if Akuda goes down, then Phillips has, or Hughes has to shift out. Then you have the quality of player that comes in behind him because of these difficult battles is a guy like a Phillips or a D. Alford or whatever, and it's not much of a drop off, and that's what you're really hoping for, and
Yes.
that's what we're hoping for with all of these battles,
Yep.
is that you know Arthur Smith said it early on. He wants it to be hard to make this 53.
Yeah.
And I think they have brought in some players that are going to make it hard on them. Now the
But
separator may end up being like special teams. Like,
yeah.
what can you do on special teams? Are you willing to be on special teams? Are you useful on special teams? I think that's one of the reasons why Brian Edwards last year didn't stick around. He just
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
useful on special teams.
Yeah.
And you can't be the fourth receiver and not be useful.
Exactly. Yeah, and the thing that I like here is, okay, I think that no matter who wins the battle at guard, I think we're going to be good, right? If Bergeron wins, that means he not only did he legit beat out Hennessy, who I think was doing pretty well at guard last year, right? He legit beats him out, and the coaches also feel like he's ready to go,
Right.
right? From a mental standpoint, right? If that's the case, great. If Hennessy wins because they just feel like Bergeron's just not quite there yet, he's almost there, but he's not quite, whatever, then I'm fine with that. But outside of that battle right there, like as far as we look at where the rest of these battles are and the names that you're hearing and the talent that you're hearing as being the guys battling is encouraging because they're not like, okay, we got a camp battle in training camp for who's your starting cornerback. I don't like to hear that.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Uh,
much rather.
who's your left tackle coming out of
Right,
training camp when you don't know who
right.
that is?
That's not a good feeling. Like, the
No,
fact
but
that almost, like, outside of the left guard, like you said, that's the only one that we're like, that's the only starter that's kind of in flux,
yeah,
and we feel good about either one.
yeah,
So that's a good feeling. Like, you can say, "Oh, Jr., you haven't brought up anybody on the defensive line." Well, because I think the defensive line is going to be such a rotation that I don't think you're really going to be outside of like Grady, Onyemata, and Graham and Calais. Like, everybody else is going to be really rotating. Even those guys are going to be rotating in.
yeah,
It just is going to come down to how many of each position do they keep. Like, that'll be like, as we go on. All right, who you think makes it out of these guys? Like, does Timmy Horn make the 53, or is he on a practice squad this year?
yeah,
Because of because of Eddie Goldman coming out of retirement. Um, guys like Timmy Horn might find themselves on the practice squad where they were on the 53 last year.
yeah.
But I don't necessarily really consider that a camp battle. They're just still developing. So it's going to be interesting to see how that stuff plays out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have my what I would like to see happen, but at the end of the day, uh, I feel pretty good that whatever ends up happening, short of catastrophic like injury wise and things like that, if things just kind of like guys, battle it out and we come out of training camp relatively healthy.
Yeah, that's
um,
that's the real key there is can we come out healthy?
Right. So if we're able to do that, then I feel pretty good about what we're just knowing who's on the team right now, I feel pretty good about where we currently sit. Um, it could, things could go crazy, but I still just I like the feeling that I'm getting from this current squad already, without even any observations from training camp.
Yeah.
Just some of the stuff I heard out of the OTAs, all the little sound bites that you hear, like everything just sounds good. And there's a feeling that you get that just right now I just feel good.
Right. Hope.
We'll see if I feel the same way in about a month.
I was about to say, I was talking to a guy at work the other day. Right now, we're in the season that hope springs eternal. Um, like I'll see after the bullets become live, and then that starts in about a month at preseason. Like
Yep.
once things start moving, and start moving at a football speed, I'll start to get a better gauge and a better feel. But
Yep.
I think that's
We got August 11th. We'll
yep.
be in Miami. We won't.
Yeah,
The
no,
team will.
yeah, no. I'll be, we'll be here watching it and talking to y'all. That's what
Yes, we
we'll
will.
be. So, but yeah, but
Absolutely.
I think that'll do it for us this evening. As far as the camp battles go, we're super excited about it. We'll be live this coming Tuesday to talk to y'all about it. Talk, get y'all's reactions and all that jazz. And we will be at camp the 29th, barring anything happening. So if you see us, come by, say hello. I'll have a pound for pound shirt or hat on, or both, depending. So just, make sure if y'all do see us, come by, say hi, give us a handshake, dap. We don't bite hard.
Nope.
So
I will
um,
make sure to bring the muzzle for him just in case he gets out of hand.
sometimes I get a little crazy,
And,
but thankfully enough, it's early in the morning. Meds should still be good circulating in the system.
I will make sure he's got his coffee in him,
That's right.
or at least I will have the coffee in me to be able
So
to
then
take.
you'll be able to deal with me.
Exactly.
But anyway, as always, Falcons fans, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128. That's GRIMM1128. Jonathan.
At Jonathan M. Holder. Come by and say hi. Also, hit that like, subscribe, and then hit that bell.
All that good fun stuff. All
Keep
that
up with
stuff.
us.
Yeah, all that stuff helps us out. If you're listening to us on Spotify, leave us a review there. That's good fun
Absolutely.
stuff too.
If you're on
Uh,
the iTunes store,
what have you.
like leave us a review there. Leave
That's
some
right.
5 stars, man. Come on.
That's it. That's it. And like I said, if you see us out and about at a game or whatever, say hello because we will say hi back. And as
Absolutely.
always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.